Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Lewis Vaughan Jones.
Good evening, noswaith dda, and bonsoir, Mr. Ralph. I do, of course, remember those wonderful French lessons with Mr. Ralph. Unfortunately, I did end up getting my lowest mark in all my GCSEs in French. So I always remember those lessons mainly because Mr. Ralph never lets me forget. I really should have listened more. Now, normally, when anyone goes back to their old school, it all seems much smaller. And not Stanwell, it is loads bigger. When I first started here at the school, things were pretty different. The buildings were falling apart. Frankly, it was awful. Bits were falling off them. Bits of them smelt like stuff I won't mention now. I had my lessons in porter cabins on the tennis court. We were never allowed to leave. Mr. Jones would chain us to the desk. Mr. Lewis would feed us only coal. It was awful. And so the first thing I want to say is that journalists never exaggerate. And I avoid cliches like the plague. 60% of the time, that joke works every time. Bit of maths. And borrowed from the film Anchorman, which I thought was a documentary. Of course, though, I was so lucky to come here to Stanwell. The buildings have changed, thankfully, but that ethos and that commitment is still here. Now, first of all, of course, to everyone here, congratulations. You're the reason we're all here, and you should be very proud of that. When I started, as I mentioned, things were a little different. We had no mobile phones for a start, no text messages. We actually had to pass old-fashioned paper notes around the back of class if we wanted to communicate. Some of us used pages, some of us used telegrams, others used smoke signals. That was mainly Tracy down the end of the tennis courts where the teachers couldn't see her, though. For legal reasons, I do have to say Tracy is not her real name. Back then, P. Diddy was still Puff Daddy. All I wanted was a Sega Mega Drive. My haircut was curtains, which, like MC Hammer, was still cool, and not in an ironic way. So Mr. Ralph has asked me to speak about three brief things this evening. Firstly, about the people here who helped me and are now supporting you. Secondly, about my career, so I'll talk a bit about the challenges. They're always the times we learn the most. And thirdly, the opportunities that lie ahead for you, including driving James Bond's car. And I'll get to that. First, let's start with the people around you and how important they are. So my form teacher during GCSEs was Mr. Meddins. Back then, he was charismatic, dedicated, and youthful. And seeing him here today, he is charismatic, dedicated, and 2 out of 3 isn't bad. And there was Mrs. Woolley, that's W-O-O-L-E-Y, and that is one of the main things I remember from her class, oddly. But she was also the mum of one of my closest friends here at school, so even when I wasn't being taught English by her, I still saw her. Like a modern-day Oliver Twist, I would arrive at her front door looking for a meal. And with amazing patience, she always welcomed me in. I've never really been able to express my gratitude properly, so if you indulge me for 10 seconds, Miss, I just want to say thank you so much for everything you did to me. You helped me in ways that you will never know and I will never forget. Though I wouldn't recommend, as a matter of course, knocking on the teacher's door asking for food. So I didn't realize, of course, at the time, how much my teachers shaped any success I had. You here will have your own memories of teachers, some good, some... No, all good. I'm being glad at only good memories of your teachers here. And your friends, too. You won't be able to forget them, even if you want to. I'm still very close with the ones here who pulled my trousers down in the hallway, who broke my arm playing football, who, when I was off school ill, Told Mr. Powell in chemistry I was actually hiding in a cupboard. I'm still friends with the ones who didn't laugh at me when I wore my mum's shirt. It was a red satin number with space for shoulder pads. Go the 80s. Yeah, I say that they didn't laugh. Of course, I mean they did laugh for weeks. And I say weeks, I mean decades. So never underestimate the role that those around you play in your success. And the second thing I want to talk about this evening is about how much we learn when things don't go so well. It was Mr. Ralph who steered me through sixth form, helping me fill out my personal statement, as he mentioned. Now, I was applying to do some philosophy, so I had to write something that sounded clever. I have read Plato's Republic, I wrote on my application form, and I thought, I will definitely read that before my interview. So I'm sitting in my interview. The Oxford tutor sitting opposite me, he says, Lewis, I see you've read Plato's Republic. Tell me, boy, what did you make of tripartism in the Republic? It was the longest, most awkward silence of my life. And so I had a long time to ponder a life lesson. And that life lesson was, if ever you say you're going to do something, just do it. It is easier, I promise. And it's a weird thing in life that I've found that actually sometimes the easiest thing is to do the hard work first to avoid the humiliation afterwards. And the second thing I learned is if you really can't blag it anymore, you have to come clean. So that's what I had to do. Now, after studying, I started my life in TV. I was very grand. I wanted to witness history. As Plato said, I wanted to be the torchbearer, the poets and the seers, to shine a light into the darkness. I'm quoting Plato so that you all might think I actually did go back and read that book. Thank you, Google. Anyway, on my first day of my new job as a reporter, I'm sitting poised in the car, or the newsmobile, as I'd called it in my own head, sitting next to the cameraman, who was probably Trev, and the phone rings. Lewis, we've got a story. It's breaking news. What is it? A woman has bought a vegetarian pasty, but it's got meat in it. She's outside the Tesco's, hasta la vera, go. So we did go. And it was true. It was a cheese and onion pasty, but it had chicken in it. This was it, I thought. My first scoop. All I needed now was a headline. And it came to me. Nasty pasty. So my career had started, and if I'm being honest, had already peaked. I recently interviewed the American billionaire Donald Trump. Yes, he is as weird as you think, and no, there is no explanation for that hair. So he sat down and he said, Lewis, I won't do the accent. He said, Lewis, you do know the perimeters for this interview? Perimeters? I thought, I don't know, a meter or so? I don't know. I couldn't remember. And I was, oh, no. He means parameters. Clearly, this man isn't a Stanwell man, I thought. And then I needed to do some filming with him. I explained we need some video with you, Donald, doing something normal, something moving around. And we were on his golf course, so I said maybe you could play a hole of golf or drive on a buggy. Instead, he walked onto the green, turned around, looked straight at me, and did this. And again, I was confronted with a very long and very awkward silence. Not for the first time in my life. But this time, I just couldn't find any life lesson in it at all. It has just haunted me ever since. I had to get it off my chest. The third thing I want to mention is the opportunities out there for all you. As a journalist, I've had the immense privilege of seeing glimpses into so many different parts of life. So if you want, you can drive that James Bond car. I was doing a news story about an auction, a charity auction. I got in the car, here I am. I stalled it. There are other options. You could be chased through burning cars by rioters, have bricks thrown at you by the English Defence League, interview child soldiers who escaped from Joseph Kony in northern Uganda. stand in silence in Wootton Bassett as the coffins of soldiers make their final journey. Interview mothers who have lost their sons just hours earlier to knife crime. Be in Sandy Hook in America after the school shootings, watching thousands file into funerals. See our athletes win gold medal after gold medal in the Olympic Stadium at London 2012. Chase the captain around Italy of that Costa Concordia ship. You can play polo. You can do the moonwalk on TV. I think it's worth repeating, you can get to drive a James Bond car. You can break a world record. You can meet a grandma who stopped an armed robbery with her handbag. You could do lunges with the Pussycat Dolls. I won't do it. You could sing with the Sugar Babes. You could flirt with Catherine Jenkins. She might still call. She's still got my number. You could report from Las Vegas. I would love to tell you about that, but we all know the rule about Vegas. If you've seen the film The Hangover, you're too young. And if you've seen the film, it's nothing like that. But what I do want to say is all those opportunities and countless others are open to you, and I urge you to pick what excites you and go for it. And this job has opened my eyes to one very simple thing. Whoever you are and whatever you are doing, it is really the people close to you. So everyone, with your awards this evening, you should be proud, but there are lots more people who are much more proud than you. They're all sitting around over there. Your parents, your guardians, and your family. It is difficult to contemplate, but one day you will be as old as them. I know. Worse than that, you're going to start dressing like them. I know. It happened to me in year 8 when I wore my mum's shirt with a red thing. I wouldn't recommend starting that early. But let's forget about them for a second. This is your moment, time to acknowledge all the hard work that you've put in. So I want to leave you with 3 quick thoughts. Firstly, do work hard, not just in lessons. It's the friends you make, the memories you create, and the people that stick by you. Secondly, if you want to go to university, I can recommend a good book, Tripartism in Plato's Republic, read that. And also that it is in some of the worst and most embarrassing moments in your life that you will learn the most, so don't worry about them. Thirdly, grasp your opportunities. You have more than you think. The more you listen, the more your voice will be worth listening to. So try to listen to those around you, listen to yourself and what you really want to do, and most importantly, if you're in a French class, listen to Mr. Ralph. Congratulations, good luck, and bonne chance. Thank you.